You wake up, not to an alarm, but to the cries of crows over the field. The air is thick with smoke and mold. Your throat is coated with ash. The wheat has burned. The potatoes have rotted in the ground. The hay is dust. Your wife is silent. Your children stare at the floor. You are not lazy. You simply lost the weather lottery, and the stake was their lives. You live in the year 850. There are no steam engines, no factories, no roads, no hope. There is only the land, and the Lord, and his men with their clubs. 1 in 3 children dies before the age of 5, not from plague, but from hunger, from cold, from the emptiness in their bellies. Do you know this feeling? When you do everything right, but the world still devours you? This is your idyll. 85% of the population is in serfdom, not metaphorically, but literally bound to the land, like a chain around the neck, like a debt in the blood. This isn't a utopia, it's a system, and it never sleeps. It waits for the harvest to take it all. Imagine the 21st century, but without factories, without trains, without electricity. 6 billion people, all peasants, all slaves to the weather and the landlord. No schools, no hospitals, no rights, only the church and fear and another failed harvest. Were you told that the Industrial Revolution was evil, that it took away real life? This is real life, hands calloused, back broken, eyes empty. A craftsman whispers a recipe to his son under threat of death, because knowledge is power, and power is not for you. Look here. In this world there is no progress. There is a cycle: sow, pray, tremble, die, and start again. Art, forever. Are you ready to admit it? The absence of the Industrial Revolution is not salvation. It's a trap. An iron trap, without windows, without doors. And the only key is in the hands of those who dared to build a machine. Lord Edmund takes a sip. The wine is bitter, like his commands. Below, there's no rebellion. It's the groan of the earth. People aren't demanding freedom. They're asking for bread. But there is no bread because there are no fertilizers, no tractors, no transport. Only hands and backs and another failed harvest. Imagine you are the earth. You are plowed to the bone. You are sucked dry. Each year, a little deeper, a little more brutally. And one day, you stop giving. Not out of malice, but from exhaustion. This is the agrarian economy, a dying fire without wood. Does this sound familiar? When you work twice as hard, but there's still not enough food? This is your natural balance. 1 hectare feeds 5 people, not 6, not 10, 5. And if a 6th is born, someone must die. This isn't theory, it's calculation. 200 kilograms of grain per person per year is the limit. Enough to breathe, not enough to dream. Now you are a child in the village. You are 7. You already know if the rye doesn't grow in spring, your younger brother won't survive the winter. Not because you don't love him, but because there's no choice. In a world without growth, every extra mouth is a death sentence. And here's where it gets interesting. Without the Industrial Revolution, humanity would remain trapped. 1 billion people, no more, not because of morality, not because of wisdom, but because every time the population approached the limit, the earth responded with plague, war, famine, not as a catastrophe, but as a regulation, as if nature placed an axe on the last oak and said, "Enough." Do you think this is stability? This is slow extinction, where even seed grain is a luxury, where every breakthrough is impossible because there's no surplus. No surplus, no science, no schools, no time to think. Only work and fear and a prayer for rain. And power? It doesn't leave, it strengthens. Because in a world without growth, The only capital is land, and he who holds it holds everything. Your life, your wife, your son, and if there isn't enough land, you go for it. Into foreign lands, into foreign lives, not for goods but for bodies. Look here. In this world, colonies don't build factories. They build plantations. Not out of cruelty, but out of logic. If there are no machines, you need people. If people don't want to work, you chain them. It's simple. It's terrible. It's inevitable. Were you told that without progress, the world would be cleaner? Look into the eyes of Lord Edmund's peasants. There is no cleanliness there. There is emptiness. And in that emptiness, not a utopia is born, but eternal hunger. Captain Velasquez looks at the shore. Chains clatter, not like music, but like a calculation. His ship is not a galleon with spices, nor a frigate with cannons. It's a barge for bodies. People stand in rows, bare to the waist, their ribs like axe handles. They don't scream, screaming wastes calories. And calories are profit. Do you know this feeling? When you are valued not for your mind, not for your soul, but for your weight in pounds. The archives of the Lisbon Guild. Male slave, 25 years old, 12 pounds. Woman with children, 9. Child under 10, 4. Not a beast, a pragmatist. Velasquez knows if he doesn't bring 100 slaves to Jamaica, his patrons will burn his house. And if he does, he'll buy a second ship. Imagine, you are a colonial empire. You have no factories, no steam engines, no railways. How do you grow? Only through land and labor. Every hectare of sugarcane requires 20 pairs of hands. Every hectare of cotton, 30. Machines won't help. They don't exist. So, you go for people. Not because you hate, but because you calculate. Slavery is not a vice. It's a business model, and it works. A free worker costs 17 times more. You have to feed him, pay him, heal him. A slave feeds himself, as long as he can. And when he can't, he's replaced. Simple. Cold. Efficient. Now you're in London, the 19th century. But there are no factories. That means no abolition of slavery. It doesn't disappear, it scales up. Historians model, in a world without steam, the proportion of slaves in Brazil by 1900 would be 42%. In Algeria, 38. In Mississippi, 51. Not in antiquity, not in the Dark Ages, in the 20th century. Because without machines, the human body is the only engine. And the more you want to produce, the more you have to break. Were you told that colonies were built for gold? A lie. They were built for backs, for calluses, for blood that doesn't ask for days off. A slave is not a system error. He is its heart. If it beats, it works. Imagine, your son goes to school. But there is no school. Because a teacher is a luxury, like a doctor, like bread for breakfast. In a world without growth, knowledge is a threat, and order requires you to know one thing: your place is where you were put. Not in a colony, not on a plantation, but in the workshop, in the village, in a chain that you don't see but feel in every fiber. Look here. In this world, the craftsman sharpens a knife. His hands are skilled, but his son cannot choose a profession. The guild will forbid it, not out of malice, out of logic. If everyone starts changing places, the system will collapse. And the system cannot collapse. It feeds the Lord. It feeds the captain. It feeds those who look down from above and never descend. This is the utopia, without machines. Not a garden, not peace, an eternal feudal machine lubricated with sweat and fear, and it's still working, while you remain silent. Master Johann lights a candle. The flame trembles like his hands. His son sits opposite him. In his palms, a wooden template. Today he will learn how to listen to wood, not with his eyes, not with his ears, with his skin, because pine whispers differently than oak, and maple sings if you cut it during a full moon. But this knowledge is not for everyone, only for those whose ancestors paid dues, swore oaths, kept silent. If Johann reveals the secret to a stranger, he will be expelled from the guild, and without the guild, he is a shadow. No market, no orders, no protection. The scent of wood shavings is the language of the initiated, and you won't understand it, even if you breathe deeply. Now you are a woman. You are 15. Your father is a lord. Your home is stone and silence. Your chances of learning to read are less than 5%, not because you are stupid, but because why spend bread on a book when you can bear a son? In this world, knowledge is not light. It is weight, and every letter is an extra gram on a back that already carries water, firewood, a baby. Even in the castle, you are taught to count only to 100, to know how many barrels of salted cabbage are in the cellar, but not to read maps, laws, dreams. Literacy below 5% is not a tragedy. It's a calculation. Survival does not require reading. It requires hands and silence. Freedom is not a right. It's a risk. Imagine you are a peasant. You are given land and the right to leave. To where? There are no roads, no cities, no factories. All there is the field and the Lord and his clubs. If you leave, who will sow the rye? Who will dig the well? Who will feed those who remain? In an agrarian world, labor is not a profession. It is an asset, like a cow, like a plow, like the last sack of grain. And an asset must be locked up through debt, through fear, through a chain that you don't see but feel in your vertebrae. Does this sound familiar? When your skill is not your own? When you cannot leave even if you hate it? Because leaving is death not only for you but for everyone behind you. Science in this world does not die. It hides in monastic cellars, in notes under floorboards, in the minds of loners who are called madmen. Because without schools, there are no students. Without factories, there are no laboratories. Without surplus, there is no time to think. The greatest ideas rot in drawers, like potatoes in a failed harvest. Now imagine, you are an inventor. You have a blueprint, a steam engine. It can thresh grain, pump water, turn a mill. But who will build it? The blacksmith fears the guild. The Lord fears rebellion. And you are nobody. Your genius is dust on a shelf, until a world is born that awaits a machine, and not a prayer. Leonardo runs his finger over the copper pipe. It's cold. In the boiler there's a warm sludge, not steam, not power, a disgrace. Outside, the creak of a cart. A horse snorts. The miller curses the rain. Everything is in its place. Only his dream is dead. He invested everything in it, his wife's ring, his son's boots, his neighbor's trust, and received mockery and an empty chest. Why this? They asked. Because a horse gets tired. Because the wind doesn't always blow. Because a human is not a machine. But in this world, a human is the machine. And to replace him means to deceive God, or the Lord, or both. The quiet hiss of the boiler drowns in the chorus of chains on the plantations. His genius is dust on a shelf, and the shelf is in a house that will soon be taken for debts. Does this sound familiar? When you see the solution, but the world sees only a threat? Science here does not die. It suffocates, because science is not one mind in the dark. It is a network. Laboratories, accurate scales, glass flasks, paper on which you can write without counting every sheet. And you, your tool is a knife sharpened by your grandfather. Your laboratory is a shed that smells of rotten cabbage. Your audience is the guildmaster who fears you will make a better machine than his. Without schools, there are no students. Without factories, there is no demand for precision. Without surplus, there is no time for mistakes, and science is 1,000 mistakes for one breakthrough. In an agrarian world, you cannot afford 1,000. You are given one. And if you fall forever. Now you are John Kay, 1733. You invented a machine that weaves fabric 12 times faster. But who will buy it? Not the peasant. He has no coin for bread. Not the weaver. The guild will forbid it. Not the lord. Why does he need more fabric if he already wears one dress for 10 years? Your machine costs £50. The average craftsman's earning is £2 a year. You are not an inventor. You are a dreamer. And your dream gathers dust in a corner while the world turns on old gears. Here's the paradox. Progress requires luxury, and luxury requires progress. Without the first, there is no second. Without the second, there is no first. And humanity gets stuck in a loop, like a mill wheel in a dried-up stream. Imagine, you hold the blueprint of the future in your hands, but you have no metal to forge it, no ink to copy it, no road to take it to someone who will believe. Your idea is not a failure. It was simply born in the wrong world. And the guilds, they are not villains. They are just afraid. If everyone starts building new machines, who will pay the dues? Who will maintain order? Who will stop the rebellion when horses become unnecessary? Traditions are not a museum. They are a prison with soft walls. And the key to it lies in the hands of those who fear tomorrow. Remember this moment: in a world without growth, even genius becomes superfluous. And the superfluous are removed. Quietly. Not with an axe, but with indifference. The silence of the workshop is broken only by the creak of workbenches and the whispers of the elder masters. In the center is a young carpenter. In his hands a machine, wooden, with bronze pins. It carves twice as fast. He built it for 2 years, in the cellar, in sweat, in fear. Today he brings it to the guild. The master looks. His eyes are clouded by oak bark and time. He doesn't ask, doesn't praise, doesn't scold. He takes the machine and throws it into the furnace. The flame consumes not wood, it consumes an idea. Do you know this feeling? When you do everything right, but are punished for audacity? Imagine you are this carpenter. Your invention saves time, effort, lives. But for the guild, it is betrayal. Because in a world without growth, any improvement is theft. Theft of work from another. Theft of order from the guild. Theft of power from the elders. Knowledge here is not light. It is a lock. And the key is kept under an oath of silence. Now you are an apprentice jeweler in Florence. You draw a pattern that is not in Cosimo de' Medici's canon. You are not praised for your boldness. You are expelled. Your drawings are burned, your fingers are broken. Not out of cruelty, out of logic. If one begins to change, everyone loses control. And control is the only thing that keeps the world from falling. Look here. Crafts in this world are not art. They are a system of checks. Every pattern, every joint, every nail, according to the rules. Not because it's beautiful, because it's safe. Safe for those who are already inside. For you, a wall. Were you told that traditions are sacred? Here's a number. 92% of forbidden innovations are tools. Just tools. Not magic. Not rebellion. A hammer with a different grip. A knife with a different angle. Everything that could save an hour. Everything that could offer a reprieve. Everything burned. Broken. Consigned to oblivion. Now you are a spectator. Imagine that your profession is forever. Your son cannot choose. Your daughter cannot ask. Your skill is not yours. It belongs to the guild. And if you dare to improve it, you will be erased. Quietly. Without scandal. Like dust from a workbench. This is beauty in a cage. Carved doors. Golden goblets. Precise seams. Everything perfect. And everything chained. Because in a world without machines, progress is not a dream. It is a threat. And a threat is eliminated, not with an axe, but with a furnace. Remember this moment. Traditions did not preserve crafts. They suffocated them to preserve power. And in this world, even the genius of a carver is dust on a shelf. Until someone decides, enough. The forest hums, not from the wind, from axes. The old lumberjack looks at the felled oak, not just a tree, the last one suitable for the keel of a royal frigate. His father cut here, his grandfather even earlier. Now on the horizon, stumps, like tombstones. He raises his axe, not out of greed, out of despair. In his ears, the echo of a falling trunk. Once the sound of construction. Now, the end. Does this sound familiar? When everything you do destroys what you depend on? In a world without steam, nature is not sacred. It is fuel. Forests fall because there is no coal for machines. And without forests, no ships, no houses, no fire in winter. Soils are exhausted, not from stupidity, from necessity. Yields fall by 0.7% per generation, slowly, irreversibly, like a worm eating an apple from the inside. The sky is cleaner? Yes, but only because you cannot afford smoke. Cleanliness here is not a virtue. It is a sentence. Now you are in a mine 200 feet deep. The air is thick with coal dust. A torch in your hand. A rope at your waist. In 1850, 1,500 people die here annually. 4 times more than at the height of industry. Why? Because without steam pumps, water floods the shafts. Without lifts, collapses bury people alive. Without ventilation, methane tears bodies apart. But coal is still needed. Not for factories. They don't exist. For forges. For cannons. For siege towers. A miner's life is worth less than a piece of coal. Were you told that industry poisoned the earth? Look into the eyes of the one who cuts the last oak, or descends into the mine without a rope in case of collapse. They are not destroying nature. They are destroying themselves, to survive another day. Imagine you breathe clean air, but beneath your feet, emptiness. Cleared forests, burned fields, depleted resources. A world without machines does not spare nature. It simply consumes it slower, piece by piece, until nothing remains but silence and stumps. And war, it doesn't end. Without rifles, they fight with swords. Without roads, armies trample fields for years. Without factories, every nail in armor is a week of a blacksmith's labor. And all this requires wood, land, people who can be broken, like a branch, like a bone, like hope. Look here. A clean world is a world that can no longer give anything. And the only sound in it is the axe on the last oak. Under the castle walls, a siege tower stands. The timbers creak. The tar-soaked leather trembles with each step. Inside, spearmen. Hands calloused, lips cracked from thirst. Above, archers. Their eyes fixed on the crenellated stone where a shadow with a cauldron of boiling water flickers. Beyond the hill, cavalry. Armor, rusty. Horses thin. But still ready to charge into formation. No cannons, no mines, only muscle, wood, and steel. The siege has lasted for 3 years. Inside the castle, they eat rats. Bones are boiled thrice. In the camp, horsehide stewed in a helmet. No one wins. No one surrenders. War is not an event. It is a way of life. Imagine, you are a commander. You have 20,000 men. In a month, half will desert. no shoes, no bread, no roads to transport flour. Without factories, no uniforms. Without workshops, no gunpowder. Without railways, no army. War remains the affair of aristocrats, not a nation. Cavalry rules, because there are no rifles to stop a horse. Sieges last for years, because there are no cannons to breach a wall in an hour. And conflicts don't end. They simply flow. Like marsh water. Now you are a child in the village. You are 5. You were born to the clang of swords. You will marry to the thud of catapults. You will die to the thunder of hooves. The 100 Years' War lasted 116 years. In this world, that's normal. Historians calculate a major conflict without technology lasts an average of 25 years, sometimes an entire lifetime. Archaeologists dig in Germany. They find a layer of ash, like a geological stratum. Beneath it, fragments of towers. Above it, new ones. The world knew no peace even in peacetime. Do you know this feeling? When you wake up and don't know whose blood is on your doorstep? Not an enemy's, not a friend's, just blood. War here is not an exception. It's the background. Constant. Suffocating. Inevitable. Look here. In this world there is no victory. There is only a reprieve. While the blacksmith forges a new sword. While the carpenter assembles a new tower. While the horse has not fallen from hunger. And again, forward. Into the same mud. Under the same walls. With the same faces. Remember this moment. Without industry, war does not leave. It slows down. Becomes eternal. And every breath you take is part of its rhythm. Like a drum. Like a chain. Like the last axe on the last oak. Everything is connected. An economy without growth demands cheap labor. This means serfdom, not as a relic, but as an engine. 85% of people are bound to the land. In the 21st century, 6 billion slaves. Not in theory, in calculation. Serfdom kills schools. Why educate someone born for manual labor? Literacy is below 5%. Even among the daughters of lords, they can count barrels in the cellar. But they don't read maps. They don't write letters. They don't ask why. Illiteracy kills science. No laboratories. No blueprints. No exchange. Ideas rot in cellars, like potatoes in a failed harvest. The inventor is not a hero. He is a threat. His machine will be burned. His fingers will be broken. Not out of malice, out of logic. The suppression of innovation preserves guilds. Guilds rule like the church. A hand loom with a flying shuttle could speed up work 12-fold. But it was used by fewer than 3 weavers in 1,000. The rest were afraid. They were silent. They chopped wood. And without machines, war never ends. It just drags on, like plague, like famine, like debt. 100 Years' War is normal. Armies live in the fields. They eat horsehide. Sieges last decades, until the last person dies. And all of this devours the forest. The last oak falls not for a ship, for a fire, for armor, for the hope that tomorrow will be worse, but not today. Miners die twice as often as in industry, because there are no pumps, no lifts, no margin for error. Their lives are cheaper than coal. Does this sound familiar? When everything you do leads not forward, but into the same pit? Now you are the son of a craftsman. You are 14. Your father teaches you to hold the chisel at 37 degrees. He says, listen to the wood. But you are silent. You already know, skill will not give you land, will not give you a wife, will not give you the right to leave. You will learn everything and forget it. Because in this world knowledge is not wings, it is a chain forged from ash and oaths. Your father feels it, a splinter in his throat, but he continues to carve the spoon. not for you, for memory, so that something remains when the last hearth dies out. We criticize the Industrial Revolution for the smoke, for the factories, for the noise. But what if it wasn't a sin, but an escape? An escape from a trap where every extra mouth is a death sentence, where every breakthrough is betrayal, where even a dream is a luxury for which people are killed. Progress is not a gift. It is a desperate leap forward, with burning lungs, with dirty hands, but with freedom in their eyes. Imagine clean air, quiet villages, craft workshops. But behind this, chains, illiteracy, eternal war. So, would a world without machines be better? Write in the comments, yes or no. But first, ask yourself, maybe we didn't destroy a utopia. Maybe we escaped from a prison and called it progress.